For 5 years, I love a woman I thought I knew. Her only quirk was an obsession with makeup, but I never imagined the truth. Her secret wasn't what she was hiding, but that her entire face was a hiding place. There's a smell to a woman you've loved for years. It's not just perfume. It's a mix of her shampoo, the lotion she uses, the fabric softener on her clothes, and something deeper, something uniquely her. For 5 years, Sarah's scent was my anchor. It was the smell of home, of lazy Sunday mornings, of a life I'd meticulously built and cherished. Her official scent was something floral and expensive, but the one I knew was layered with a faint, almost antiseptic smell of what she called her nightly regimen. I'm Mark, by the way, 42 years old, run a small custom carpentry business. I build things that last. I like solid wood, straight lines, and things that are exactly what they appear to be. Maybe that's why I fell for Sarah. She seemed like the genuine article in a world full of veneer and particle board. Stunning, yes, but it was the way she carried herself, with a quiet confidence, a warmth that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. But love makes you willfully blind. It encourages you to sand down the rough edges of your partner's quirks until they're smooth and acceptable. And Sarah had quirks. Lots of them. Her makeup wasn't just a routine. It was a ritual of fortification. Our bathroom counter looked like a goddamn command center for a chemical warfare division. Bottles, jars, tubes, brushes of every conceivable size and shape. I joke about it. Planning to invade a small country with all that honey? She'd just smile that perfect, glossy smile and say, "A girl's gotta have her secrets, Mark." It took me a while to realize how literal she was. We never went swimming. A trip to the beach meant she'd sit under a giant umbrella, fully dressed, a wide brim hat casting a permanent shadow over her face. Rain was her mortal enemy. She'd panic if caught outside, shielding her face with her purse like she was protecting state secrets. "I just hate how it makes my skin feel," she'd say, a flimsy excuse I was happy to accept. She never, not once in 5 years, let me see her without her face on. If I woke up in the middle of the night, she'd either be facing away from me or have her back to me, a little nightlight casting just enough of a glow for me to see the perfect silhouette of her hair. If I stayed over, she'd wake up a full hour before me to freshen up. At first, I found it charming, a bit old-fashioned. After a while, it became a silent, unbreachable wall between us. The question started as small splinters in my mind. Why was her purse always so heavy? It clanked with the sound of glass jars, not just keys and a wallet. Why did she get packages delivered from obscure Eastern European dermatological supply companies? I saw the labels once before she snatched the box away. And the biggest splinter of all, I had never seen a single childhood photo of her. Not one. When I asked, she'd get a distant look in her eyes. We move around a lot. Things got lost. The beginning of the end came on a Tuesday. I got a call that a big job, a full library build-out I'd been chasing for months, had come through. I was ecstatic. I bought a bottle of the good stuff, the 18-year-old single malt we were saving, and flowers. I got home early, planning to surprise her. I found her in the living room, but she wasn't Sarah. Not my Sarah. She was sitting on the floor, back to the door, surrounded by her tools. Not makeup brushes, but other things. Small spatulas, pots of what looked like putty or clay, and bottles of colored liquids. Her hair, the beautiful auburn cascade I loved to run my fingers through, was off. It was sitting on a styrofoam head on the coffee table. What was on her head was short, mousy, and thin. She was so focused. She didn't hear me come in. I saw her lift something to her face. It was a nose, a perfectly sculpted, delicate prosthetic nose. She held it in place, her movements practiced and precise, and then began applying a thin layer of adhesive around the edges with a tiny brush, blending it seamlessly into her skin. My keys slipped from my hand and clattered on the hardwood floor. She froze. The silence in the room was absolute, a crushing weight. Slowly, she turned her head. But she didn't turn her whole body, just her neck, at an angle that seemed unnatural. The face that looked back at me was half-finished. One, I was the warm hazel I knew, framed by long, dark lashes. The other was small, pale gray and lashless. One cheek was high and rosy, glowing with health. The other side of her face was flat, sallow, and undefined. The nose she was about to attach sat on the floor between us. Where her nose should have been was nothing, just a smooth, unnerving plane of skin with two small, dark slits for nostrils. The world tilted. My brain refused to process what I was seeing. It was like looking at a Picasso painting that had come to life. The parts were all there, scattered around the room, but the canvas underneath was horrifyingly blank. "Mark," she said, and her voice was different. Without the carefully shaped lips she always wore. Her voice was flatter, thinner. "You weren't supposed to be home yet." I couldn't speak. The flowers and whiskey fell to the floor, the bottle of scotch shattering and releasing a sharp, alcoholic stench that mixed with the chemical smell of her adhesives. "It's not what you think," she said, starting to get up. "Stay back." I managed to whisper, the words catching in my throat. I took a step back, my hand fumbling behind me for the doorknob. What are you?" That was the wrong thing to say. A flicker of something ancient and cold passed over her features. The real ones. The sadness I expected wasn't there. It was replaced by a profound, weary disappointment. "What am I?" she repeated, her voice losing its thinness and gaining a strange resonance. "I am what you wanted. I am the after photo in the magazine. I am the girl on the screen who never ages. I am the impossible standard you hold in the back of your mind every time you look at a real woman." She stood up fully. She was shorter than I thought, without the expensive heels and posture she always maintained. She took a step toward me, and I flinched back like I'd been struck. "We tried," she continued, her voice now calm, terrifyingly rational. "For centuries, we tried to live among you as we were. But you feared us. You called us monsters, demons, changelings. You hunted us. So we adapted. We learned. And your modern world, oh, it's the most wonderful camouflage. You invented a culture where women are expected to slice themselves up, inject themselves with poisons, paint themselves into entirely new people. You made the masks mandatory for your own kind. It was so easy for us to simply make better masks." My hand finally found the doorknob. I turned it, yanked the door open, and scrambled into the hallway, not even bothering to close it behind me. I didn't run. I just stood there, gasping, trying to force the image of her face, her real face, out of my mind. "Mark, please." Her voice came from the doorway. It was her normal voice again, the one I knew, the one she constructed. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." I looked down the hall toward the elevator, my escape. Mrs. Gable from 4B was coming out of her apartment. A sweet old lady, always baked cookies for Flora at Christmas. Mrs. Gable. I yelled, my voice cracking. "Call the police. Help me." She stopped, looking for me to the open door of my apartment, where Sarah now stood, fully framed in the doorway. Mrs. Gable gave me a kindly, pitying smile. "Oh, you poor dear," she said, her voice gentle. "It's always such a shock for them the first time." Then, with a casual gesture, she reached up to her own face. Her wrinkled, kindly hand grasped the edge of her jaw and she pulled. The entire facade of her face, the wrinkles, the liver spots, the thin, smiling lips, peeled away like a rubber mask, revealing the same smooth, featureless canvas underneath. The same pale gray eyes stared back at me, devoid of any human warmth. My blood ran cold. I turned the other way, towards the stairs. A young couple, the Millers from down the hall, were just coming up. They saw the look on my face, saw Mrs. Gable holding her own face in her hand, and they stopped. "Honey, looks like 4D is finally moving out," the husband said to his wife. The wife nodded, a sad look on her perfect, doll-like face. "It's a shame. I really like this one." Then she reached up and delicately plucked a long, false eyelash from her eye, tossing it to the carpet. Panic, true, primal, animal panic, finally took hold. I sprinted for the stairs. The hallway was changing. Doors were opening. From every apartment, they were emerging. Women. The college student from 2A, the stern businesswoman from 3F, the young mother with the twin babies. They all stepped out, and one by one, they began to deconstruct. Wigs were lifted. Colored contacts were pinched out. Prosthetics were removed with practiced ease. The hallway was filling with the scent of chemicals and adhesive, and the sight of blank, identical canvases turning their pale, gray eyes towards me. They weren't walking. They were gliding, surrounding me in a silent, contracting circle. Sarah was there, her expression unreadable. "You see, Mark," she said, her true, resonant voice echoing in the suddenly silent hall. "You were never in love with me. You were in love with the hours of work I put in. You were in love with the clay and the paint. You were in love with the canvas, not the artist. What do you want?" I whimpered, backed against the wall, a sea of them closing in. Mrs. Gable, the thing that wore her face, spoke again, her voice a dry rustle. "Want? We don't want anything anymore. We are simply continuing. But the materials we use to build our nests, to craft our disguises, they expire. They get found out. They have to be recycled." She held up her hand, and the others did the same. Their fingers seemed to lengthen, the skin turning translucent, revealing a network of fine, shimmering filaments beneath. "Don't worry," Sarah said, and it was the last thing I heard clearly. "It's a closed loop. Nothing is wasted. You built things that last, Mark. Now you get to be a part of something that lasts forever." My scream was swallowed by the rustling, shimmering sound of their approach. I closed my eyes and saw only her face, the blank, featureless canvas where her soul was supposed to be. And I finally understood. I wasn't being murdered. I was being disassembled. My raw materials were about to be used for a new construction. The last thing I smelled wasn't the whiskey or the flowers. It was a sharp, clean, antiseptic smell of a fresh canvas, waiting for the first layer of paint.